Welcome back to Thoughts from Underground. Perhaps we should change pace for a moment. Last time we'd established something rather uncomfortable. Monotheism as inescapable. Whether you call your ultimate principle God or physical law, conscious flourishing, you're still standing on monotheistic territory. The debate is never about whether a singular ultimate reality exists. The debate is about what that reality is. Today we venture into far more treacherous ground, because not everyone believes reality is singular at all. Some of you, perhaps many of you, have been occupying polytheistic territory your entire lives without realizing it, without naming it, without understanding the implications. Well, my friends, welcome to polytheism. Let's establish our terms with precision. Polytheism is not the worship of multiple gods in the crude sense that modernity has reduced it to. That's a cartoon. Polytheism, at its core, describes reality in which multiple supreme principles exist in tension, negotiation, even conflict with one another. Power is distributed. No single arbiter governs all. Reality is fundamentally contested. Think of it this way. In monotheism, there is one orchestra conductor. All instruments follow that single vision. In polytheism, there are multiple orchestras, often playing different symphonies in the same hall. Sometimes they harmonize. Often they clash. The question polytheism asks is not, what is ultimate? The question is, which ultimates are in play? And here's what most modern thinkers refuse to acknowledge. They're asking that constantly. Stephen Jay Gould was a paleontologist of extraordinary precision, a man of rigorous empiricism, a committed atheist who would have recoiled violently at being called a polytheist. And yet, his great insight was this: evolution has no direction, no purpose, no grand narrative moving toward complexity or consciousness or anything else. Evolution is the product of multiple competing forces: random mutation, environmental pressure, genetic drift, catastrophic extinction, none of which answer to a unified principle. Reality, Gould insisted, is fundamentally contingent, radically plural. The history of life is not ladder ascending toward man. It's a bush, proliferating, branching, with no central trunk, no privileged direction. Listen to how he describes it. We are here because one group of fishes had a peculiar fin anatomy that could transform into limbs for terrestrial creatures. Because the Earth never froze entirely during an ice age. Because a small decrease in atmospheric ozone may have deleted the dinosaurs. Because the last ice age came to an end just when stabilization of warm climates was imminent. We may yearn to be cosmically central players, but the material substance does not toggle in any direction favorable to us. Do you hear what he's describing? Multiple forces, no unified will. Reality shaped by collision and contingency rather than intention. That, my friends, is polytheism. He simply refused to call it that. And here's where we must be fair to Gould. because his refusal was not mere stubbornness. It was clarity. He understood something crucial that monotheists often miss. If you insist that all reality proceeds from a single ultimate principle, whether you call that principle God or natural law, then you must explain why that principle permits such radical contingency, such profound waste, such apparent indifference to suffering. Gould's answer was elegant. It doesn't. There's no unified principle that permits these things. These things simply are, because reality is not unified. It's plural. Multiple forces in competition. Evolution has no intent because intent requires a unified consciousness directing it. Gould was describing polytheism's greatest strength, its honesty about power. Polytheism doesn't require that reality be just. It doesn't demand suffering be justified or purposeful. Reality is contested. Power is distributed. Some forces win, some lose. There's no cosmic judge weighing the balance. This is why polytheism, properly understood, is far more honest about the actual structure of existence than monotheism's insistence on a singular purpose. Gould simply failed to see that his honesty was itself a theological claim. John Hick, by contrast, he knew he was making a theological claim, and he did so deliberately. Hick was a philosopher of religion confronting a problem that monotheists struggle to answer. If God is singular and ultimate, why do genuine spiritual seekers across radically different traditions report encountering genuinely different ultimates? The Christian encounters a Trinitarian personal God. The Hindu encounters Brahman, often described as impersonal, beyond personhood entirely. The Buddhists encounter sunyata, emptiness, void, the absence of independent selfhood. Muslims encounter Allah, a single, transcendent, absolutely other. These are not the same thing described in different languages. These are genuinely different ultimates. Hick's solution was radical. They're all real. All genuine encounters with ultimate reality. But, and this is crucial, none of them are complete. Ultimate reality, Hick argued, is so vast, so beyond human conceptual capacity, that it can only be approached through multiple frameworks. Each tradition has genuinely accessed it. Each has genuinely misunderstood it. Reality is too large for monotheism's singular map. Reality requires polytheism. Here's what makes Hick dangerous to monotheistic certainty. He doesn't deny that ultimate reality exists. He doesn't say, there is no God. He says something far more threatening. Your access to God is partial. Your understanding is limited. And there are other, legitimate understandings, equally valid and equally incomplete. This is polytheism's deepest challenge to monotheistic authority, the insistence that power access to ultimacy is distributed. Not everyone's path is wrong. Many are right, simultaneously, in tension, sometimes in direct contradiction. Hick writes, the great world faiths embody different perceptions and conceptions of and responses to the real, as these have been formed and expressed within different cultures and circumstances of the human family. Notice the precision. Not different beliefs about the same thing, not one truth, many expressions. He says different perceptions of the real itself. The real is polytheistic. It permits multiple, genuine encounters. No single framework monopolizes truth. And this is where Gould and Hick converge, despite their radical disagreement on everything else. Both men, the atheist paleontologist and the Christian pluralist, are describing the same fundamental reality. Power is distributed. No single principle governs all. Reality is fundamentally plural. Gould locates that plurality in evolutionary forces. Hick locates it in competing ultimates. But the structure is identical. For Gould, evolution proceeds through the tension of competing mechanisms: mutation, selection, drift, contingency. None has absolute authority. All shape the outcome. For Hick, spiritual reality reveals itself through the tension of competing traditions: Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and more. None has absolute authority. All provide genuine access to the real. Different domains, same architecture. And here's what's most insidious. Both structures are observable. We can watch Gould's polytheism play out in the fossil record. The radiations, the extinctions, the contingencies, the branches that led to nowhere, the paths not taken. You can watch Hick's polytheism play out in human experience. The sincere mystic, the transformed life, the genuine encounter with ultimacy happening across traditions that contradict one another at every doctrinal level. These are not metaphors. They're not interpretations. These are claims about how reality actually is. Let me be very clear about what polytheism actually claims, because this is where most modern thinkers misunderstand it. Polytheism isn't chaos. It's not anything goes. It's not a refusal of truth. Polytheism is the claim that truth and power are distributed among multiple principles that don't reduce to unity. In the ancient polytheistic frameworks, Greek, Norse, Hindu, this was understood with brutal clarity. Athena governs wisdom. Ares governs war. Hephaestus governs craft. These aren't opinions about wisdom, war, or craft. These are principles that actually govern those domains. They sometimes conflict. Athena's wisdom often opposes Ares' brutality, but both are real. Both have power. Reality permits their tension. Gould's evolution was no different. Random mutation is a genuine principle. Natural selection, a genuine principle. Environmental catastrophe, a genuine principle. They don't reduce to a single law. They exist in tension. Sometimes they work together. Often they oppose. But they are real. And they have power. The same is true for Hicks's pluralism. The principle that governs Christian experience is real. The principle that governs Islamic experience is real. The principle that governs Buddhist experience is real. They don't reduce to a single ultimate that we all access identically. They're genuinely different access points to reality. Polytheism permits this plurality without denying reality itself. For what it's worth, here's what I find most compelling about polytheism, why both Gould and Hick, despite themselves, were articulating something profound. Polytheism is honest about conflict. Monotheism must explain conflict as either illusion, a misunderstanding, or evil, something that shouldn't exist, something that violates the ultimate principle. Monotheism requires that reality be fundamentally harmonious, even if that harmony is hidden. Polytheism requires nothing of the sort. In polytheism, conflict is built into the structure of reality. Competing principles do not answer to a unified arbiter. They genuinely oppose. Sometimes one wins, sometimes another. Sometimes they reach temporary accommodation. This is far more honest about what we actually observe. Gould understood this with scientific precision. Evolution is not a story of progress toward perfection. It's a story of competing pressures creating temporary solutions. Species that thrive in one environment become extinct in another. There's no arc. There's only the contingent dance of multiple forces. Hick understood this with spiritual honesty. Religious traditions do not gradually approach a single truth. They embody genuinely different encounters with ultimacy. Christianity is not bad Hinduism. Islam is not incomplete Buddhism. They're different access points, which sometimes harmonize and sometimes directly contradict. Both men saw reality as fundamentally polytheistic. Multiple principles, no unified arbiter. And here's where I must ask you directly. How much of your own life operates within polytheistic assumptions? You claim to value justice. You also value mercy. These are genuinely competing principles. Justice demands punishment. Mercy, forgiveness. They don't reduce to a single ultimate. They exist with intention inside of your own moral framework. You claim to value individual freedom, but you also value community. These are genuinely different ultimates that often oppose. Freedom says do what you will. Community says consider the other. No single principle adjudicates between them. You likely claim to value reason, but you also value emotion, beauty, intuition, tradition. These aren't aspects of a single unified principle. These are genuinely plural sources of value and meaning that often contradict. You are living polytheistically, whether you acknowledge it or not. So here's the question that Gould and Hicks, in their different ways, force upon us. Is this plurality a bug in reality that we should try and fix through metaphysical unification? Or is it a feature of reality that we should learn to navigate with honesty and sophistication? Monotheism insists we must find a singular principle that resolves all tension. One God, one law, one truth. Everything else is either ignorance or evil. Polytheism insists something far more challenging. Reality is the tension. Multiple principles are real. There's no hidden unity waiting to be discovered. There's only the skillful navigation of competing goods. Gould showed us this in evolution. The fittest organism is not the best. It's the one most suited to the current conditions. When conditions change, the fittest becomes extinct. There is no teleology. There is only the perpetual dance of competing forces. Hick showed us this in spirituality. True mystic is not the one who has found the single correct path. The true mystic is the one who recognizes that multiple paths genuinely access the real, while simultaneously admitting none are complete. Both describe polytheism's essential insight. Reality is fundamentally plural. And if reality is fundamentally plural, then you occupy polytheistic territory. Not because you worship multiple gods, though some do, but because you acknowledge, consciously or unconsciously, that multiple ultimate principles govern different domains of reality, and no single principle unifies them all. You are a polytheist if you believe that. Justice and mercy are both real, both ultimate, sometimes in direct conflict. Individual and collective good both have legitimate claims on morality. Reason and intuition both provide genuine access to truth. Matter and meaning both have irreducible reality. Multiple spiritual traditions have genuinely encountered ultimacy. You can't escape this territory through rhetoric. You can't deny the multiple principles through philosophical sleight of hand. They remain, demanding navigation, refusing unity. Gould understood this about evolution. He simply didn't see that he was describing theology. Hicks understood this about spirituality. He explicitly named it theology, without evolutionary backing. But both were describing the same map, the same territory. Next time, we move deeper still. We'll explore what happens when you collapse all principles into one. When the entire cosmos becomes the ultimate reality. When matter itself is God. When nothing transcends the physical. We'll explore pantheism, and you'll discover that many of your atheist heroes have been describing it all along. For now, sit with this. Reality may not be singular. Power may be genuinely distributed. Multiple ultimate principles may actually exist in tension, refusing resolution. And you may already be living with that truth, whether you've named it or not. Until next time, keep digging.